Hello everyone! We're nearing the final week of 2013. Can you believe it? It's almost a new year again. Damn. Anyways, I just wanted to let you all know that Monday is normally a lore day, but with all the holidays celebrating, my birthday, the podcast, New Year, all that good stuff, I unfortunately haven't been able to get a video done. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to do something that's been requested for quite some time, which is a live stream over on Twitch, where you're more than welcome to join and ask me questions that you might have. This can be lore questions, this can be questions about working with YouTube, personal questions, all kinds of questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. The stream will be from 8 PM my time until around 11, depending on how many people show up and how busy it is in the chat. I'll post the timestamps for the different time zones in the screen so you can check it out. And then in the next year, in 2014, it will be business as usual. That means Monday lore, Wednesday Zelda, and on Friday we're going to start a new Let's Play, since Orcs Must Die is done. This new Let's Play will be a WoW Let's Play, where me and Miss Fury W, we're going to level up a character together, we're going to talk a little bit about the lore, and we're going to give a couple of tips on how you can make leveling a little bit faster, and maybe even a little bit more enjoyable. Yeah. More enjoyable. And then for Saturday I have a special Q&A planned with Mr. DD Guides himself, and we were able to cover so much information that for the next few Saturdays that will be our show. So yeah, exciting new things in 2014, but to close the year off, let's answer a couple of questions. Hey Nubble! I have never understood why the Forsaken and Blood Elves joined the Horde and not the Alliance. After all, both the people of Lordaeron and the Elves of Silvermoon were part of the first Alliance. That's a good question, and I had to do a little bit of googling until I found the answer. Now for the Forsaken, I found the following. Despite not being affiliated with the Scourge, the Forsaken came under threat from humans who were dedicated to eradicating all Forsaken. As a means to further her own goals and protect her budding nation, Sylvanas sent emissaries to various factions in search of allies. The kind-hearted Tauren of Thunderbluffs proved to be the most promising contact. Specifically, Archdruid Hamel Runetotem saw the potential for redemption in Sylvanas' people, even though he was fully aware of the Forsaken's sinister nature. Thus, the Tauren convinced Warchief Thrall, despite his misgivings, to forge an alliance of convenience between the Forsaken and the Horde. In the end, the Forsaken's chances of victory against the Lich King were bolstered, while the Horde gained an invaluable foothold in the Eastern Kingdoms. So as you can imagine, after the events of Warcraft 3, where Sylvanas killed Garithos, they've taken over Lordaeron, they've got a Dreadlord as second in command, the Alliance wanted none of that. Hamul Runetotem believed that there was hope for the Forsaken, and he convinced Thrall to let them into the Horde. For the Blood Elves, I found a beautiful article on the WoW forums that I'll link in the description, because it's quite a read about the story of the Blood Elves. The headlines are basically the following. Kil'Thuz's Sunstrider and the Blood Elves in Warcraft 3, they followed Garithos. Garithos was a Alliance commander, and he was a racist bastard who didn't have the best interest in mind for the Blood Elves. It was the Naga who eventually rescued Kil'Thuz from prison, which led to his alliance with Illidan. After that, the Blood Elves, they learned how to cope with their magic addiction by siphoning magic from living beings. They reclaimed Silvermoon, they've rebuilt it, and went on to reclaim half of Eversong Forest. There they found out that Night Elves and Dwarves, they were spying on them, invading their land, and the Blood Elves were not happy with that. On the other hand, the Forsaken, they sent reinforcements to deal with Darkhan Drafir, and Darkhan was the one who betrayed the Blood Elves and told Arthas how to invade their kingdom. And on top of that, Sylvanas Windrunner, she used to be a Ranger General of Quel'Thalas. So all in all, the Horde at this point in the story was just much more appealing than the Alliance. Hi Noble! Was just researching some lore on the internet and got stuck on the Dark Riders, and they seem to be searching for different weapons and artifacts. It's very mysterious and kinda scary. I would like to hear more about it if you could provide. Thank you man, love your vids. The Dark Riders, and funny thing is, I'd never heard about them before this question, so I did a little bit of research and I found a Warcraft comic called The Dark Riders. Apparently, once upon a time, a couple of merchants showed up at Karazhan. At the time, Medivh, while under the influence of Sargeras, still lived in the tower, and these merchants made the foolish mistake of trying to sell him fake artifacts. You don't mess with a Guardian, and especially one with Sargeras inside of him, so they were turned into the Dark Riders. These riders are much like the Nazgul from Lord of the Rings. They talk with a high-pitched voice, and they're drawn to magical artifacts like the Scythe of Elune or the Hand of Azora. That's the curse Medivh placed on them. Seek these artifacts and bring them back to Karazhan. Real artifacts and not those fake ones you tried to sell me. In the comic, the heroes eventually find this stash of artifacts, and I'm not sure where they eventually all end up, but that's the story behind the Dark Riders that I could find. I'll link the comic in the description if you want to check it out. Hi Noble, who was the Blue Dragon Lich King resurrected, and what's her story? From Lucas. Lucas, I assume you mean the Blue Dragon from the Lich King cinematic? Well, she's named Sindragosa. Her story is, well, once upon a time, back during the War of the Ancients, Neltharion came up with a plan to make a weapon. A weapon that they could use against the invading Burning Legion, and that required a portion of the power from each aspect. Unknown to all of them was that Neltharion, also known as Deathwing, was already listening to the whispers of the old gods, and they were whispering that he couldn't trust anyone, that this world belonged to him, and that he should use the power of the Dragon Soul, later to be named the Demon Soul, for himself. As the story went on, and you could read this all in the War of the Ancients trilogy, the Flights had to stand against Deathwing. They realized, after he nearly evaporated all the Night Elves and the demons, that he wasn't just fighting for the good of the world anymore, so they had to stop him. At that moment, Deathwing used the power of the Demon Soul against the Blue Dragon Flight, and he nearly wiped them out of existence. The blast hurled Sindragosa far across the land, deep into the frozen north. She was now blind, she was hurting, aching with pain. She couldn't fly anymore, and she desperately tried to reach Dragonblight. Dragonblight with the graveyard where all the dragons go to die. She never made it, and in her final moments, her thoughts turned to bitterness and hatred. Hatred against the Legion, hatred against Neltharion, hatred even against Malygos. But most of all, hatred against the world of mortals. Many years later, around 10,000 years later, Arthas came into the picture, resurrected her and put her in his army. When you kill her, she says free at last, which implies that even though she hated the world as she died, she also didn't like serving Arthas. What's the purpose of the Wyrmrest Accord? The purpose of the Wyrmrest Accord was to bring the Dragonflights back together and fight against Malygos, who had declared war on all magic users. When Deathwing wanted to create his weapon, the Dragon Soul, he had to convince the others. Malygos and Deathwing, they were very close friends, and the blue aspect supported his friend. As I just told you, Deathwing would betray them all, and this betrayal, the death of all his blue dragons, would send Malygos on a path to madness, and he would separate himself from the other aspects. Now many years later, somewhere after the Third War, Alexstrasza, the Red Dragon aspect, was still a slave of the orcs. Her mate, Corialstras, came up with a plan to set her free, but to do so, he needed the help of the other aspects. In the end of the story, the Mage Ronan manages to destroy the Demon Soul and restore the full power of the aspects. This would give them the chance to defeat Deathwing and even restore Malygos' mind. Unfortunately, now that he was sane again, he started to notice how the people of Azeroth abused magic. Magic that had summoned the Burning Legion to Azeroth in the first place and cost him nearly all of his blue dragon flight. He decided to declare war on all the magic users, and for that he needed to die. Alexstrasza and the other dragons teamed up and formed the Wyrmrest Accord, which would lead into the Nexus War. We've defeated Malygos, of course, and later the Wyrmrest Accord together with Thrall would once again battle against their fallen brother Deathwing. This last battle cost them all of their power, and in the novel Dawn of the Aspects they were about to break up the Wyrmrest Accord. They didn't see the point anymore, the Age of Mortals was upon us, so why need dragons? It was Kalec, the youngest of the Aspects, who managed to convince them all to stay together and not let go of their allegiance. So long story short, the Wyrmrest Accord was made to battle against Malygos and later against Deathwing. Hey Noble, can you explain why Aegwynn is called Guardian of Tirisfal? I mean, why Tirisfal? She's named that, the Guardian of Tirisfal, because the Guardian was named after the Council of Tirisfal, and the Council was named after the location where they would meet up. in Tirisfal. For those that don't know, this is the history of the Guardian. Almost 3,000 years ago, a group of human magi, feeling fettered by strict laws governing magic in Strom, journeyed north to Lordaeron. On the southern shore of Lordaemer Lake, these magi founded the city-state of Dalaran, where they hoped to practice their craft with less restraint. The ruling archmagi, called Magocrats, eagerly devoted themselves to the arcane. They housed their growing libraries and research laboratories in the Violet Citadel, a towering spire raised by magic in the heart of the city. Magi flocked to Dalaran in ever-increasing numbers to study at its schools, do research in its vast libraries, and practice their craft freely in the company of their peers. Soon, non-magical beings moved to Dalaran to provide necessary services for their residents. The citizens of Dalaran thought that their shining city was impregnable and that its glory would never end. But in time, the constant and ungoverned use of magic began to tear the fabric of reality around the city. These tears sent bright beacons out into the twisting nether and drew the attention of the banished denizens of the Burning Legion. Through these rents, demons began to slip back into Azeroth, bringing with them conflict and cruelty, misery and corruption. Consulting the High Elves, the Magocrats learned that as long as they used magic, they would need to protect their citizenry from the Legion's agents. Yet mankind could not be allowed to learn of this threat, lest the people riot in fear. Thus, the Elves and Magocrats formed a secret order known as the Council of Tirisfal. The order began to experiment, trying to discover the most effective way to deal with the demon incursions. One group held that the Magi should work together as a team of equals, while another group believed that their magic should be funneled through a single head, though how that should be managed was another challenge. In time, the solution was found by the first Guardian. That's the introduction story to the first Guardian, and after the end of the story, they figured out a way that one person could hold all their magical power and skill and knowledge, and he became the first Guardian, which set in motion the story of Aegwynn, of Medivh, all that good stuff. But that's a story for another time. Hello Nobble! Your videos are great, but I wonder something. I have checked your armory for a couple of times and I saw that you didn't do any raid of Siege of Orgrimmar or Throne of Thunder in normal. I see you have a good enough item level to do so. So is there any specific reason that you don't do normals? From Soterius Fecadis. Well, yeah, there are a couple of reasons to be honest. What you need to know is that I've been playing this game for quite some time now and my serious days of raiding were back in Classic. Nefarian in Blackwing Lair was the last boss that I really put some effort behind. After that, the doors of Ankirai opened up and I was like, again? Do I again need to get special gear, sacrifice a large portion of my real life just to upgrade my gear and replace it later? I just lost the spirit of raiding for some reason and decided to simply not do it anymore. After that came Naxxramas with again special frost gear that you needed and a sick questline, all in order to do Naxxramas and to do more raiding to replace gear that you already collected. After that came the Burning Crusade, where we would turn over our hard-earned epics into green items, and I just realized at that moment that serious raiding wasn't fun anymore, not for the cost of so much free time. Later, in the other expansions, I did a bit of raiding. I even helped a couple of teams out with getting ready, leading them. But every time I would notice that either I became too focused on raiding, and I was sacrificing too much of my real life, or it just became boring again. Now I just use looking for raid, and from time to time I help some groups out. But raiding hasn't been a part of my gameplay for a very long time. I might do it again in Warlords of Draenor because the new flex system looks very interesting, and watching the Final Boss podcast really gives me an idea that I've been missing out. So who knows, I might do some raiding in the next expansion. Who knows. Alrighty, and with that, I'm going to do the final question, which is, hi Noble, I was wondering, does Lord Jaraxxus have something to do with the Draenei? I mean, they look alike, don't you think? Yep. They do look alike. When you fight Lord Jaraxxus, he says,
"You face Jaraxxus, Eredar Lord of the Burning Legion!"
Eredar is the original name of the Draenei. When the planet of the Eredar, the planet named Argus, was visited by Sargeras, 2 of the 3 leaders wanted to join the Burning Legion and receive his power. Kil'jaeden and Archimonde, they happily accepted his gift and they gave it to their people. Velen disagreed and saw that teaming up with Sargeras would be a bad decision, so he took as many of his people as he could and evacuated the planet. Those that followed Velen would start to call themselves Draenei, which means exiled ones. And they called those who joined Sargeras Manari, which refers to something that is hideously and fundamentally wrong. Of course, those who stay behind didn't see themselves as being wrong, and they kept on calling themselves Eredar. This is also why some of the demons from the Burning Legion, together with Kil'jaeden and Archimonde, why they look so much like the Draenei. If you want more information, I'll link my video that I did on the Draenei in the description. And with that, I'm going to call it a day. I think I've been rambling for long enough. Don't forget that if you think it's fun, Monday I'm going to stream on Twitch. I'll send out a little message on YouTube before I start. I'll also send out a tweet and I'll let you know on Facebook. And hopefully it'll be a fun time. If you can't make it or you're not going to come, then let me just say Happy New Year and may 2014 become an amazing year for all of us. Until next time, guys. See ya.